Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for another episode of the Mulliner and Musgrove Show with me, Andrew Musgrove, and him, Sam Mulliner. This week, we're going to look at Joao Pedro alternatives. Over the last few weeks, we've run similar episodes. We've looked at Newcastle United's targets, and Sam, the scouting extraordinaire, has thrown in different names into the mix, largely positively received. There have been a few Wallies who have questioned Sam's knowledge and reason to be on this podcast, but football is built on opinion. Sam isn't claiming to be the next Steve Nixon, but he does have a wealth of opinion more than anything, but experience of watching these leagues as well. And his opinion matters just as much as yours. So if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say it all. All
I
right, Sam?
mean that is just an awful defense. I mean, you've not even said the word knowledge, which I find very, very just. It hurts me. It cuts me deep. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, this is the world of football podcasts and YouTube channels that for every horrible
I'm out
comment
of
you
that
get,
now.
I know, but well, you're not, are you? Because weekly you're on this wonderful show. For every negative comment you get, you'll get 7 or 8 absolutely wonderful comments, which we do have on these shows. They are well received, and it's always nice to have them, but it's always a little bit disheartening to see some of the comments being made. And look, you can disagree. That's fine, isn't it? You can
Yeah.
disagree. No issue with that whatsoever. But it's when it gets a little bit personal. That's when we don't like that very much at all. So there's a line. Thankfully, most people stick to kind of towing it. But like I say, if you've got nothing nice to say, just don't even bother getting to the comments or responding, because we won't respond. We're here for debate and opinion and a little bit of back and forth. But let's keep it decent. Yeah.
What are you telling me to behave?
Well, I'm always wary of what you're going to say, so I'm glad it's never live, to be honest.
Okay. Well, yeah, probably for the best. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Cool, man.
It hasn't kept him awake over the last week at all. He's been ill,
No, I've been
haven't
so
you?
well. Yeah, remember last week I says I'm swear I'm coming down with something. Yeah, it was tonsillitis. Yeah, cheers. Today's the first day I'm out of bed and up and about. I've been so ill. I've had to cancel broadcast commitments elsewhere for Coral and whatnot, and yeah, so that's going to cost me. But yeah, I'm back here. Yeah, I'm kind of 80% match fit now.
And just to be clear, ladies and gents, he texted me. I didn't chase him because at the start of the week he told me he was ill and feeling a little bit worse for wear. So I said, well, let's leave it. Let's have a week off. You get yourself better. And he texted me because he wanted to bring you this wonderful episode. So that is commitment to the cause. So make sure you hit thumbs up on the video, hit subscribe to the channel, do get into the comments. And if you're listening on the audio only channel, leave us a rating and review. Before we start, Sam,
Before
have
we
you...
start.
Well, we've already started. Before we get into the main crux of the episode, let me just move this camera around. I don't know where I'm going with it. There we go.
It's not
Right.
going very well.
It's not. It's a dodgy remote. I keep telling them. Look at that in the background there. Look at that wonderful magazine that Reach PLC have produced alongside Newcastle United. Carabao Cup Winners magazine. You've got yours
Oh,
on order, right?
oh yes, please. Hang on, don't I get one gratis?
Yeah, I'll send one down in the post for you.
Thank you. I was going to say, gee, I don't get paid for this, people. So the least they could do is just send me some memorabilia.
Well, you got
So
a nice voucher the other month,
that's
didn't you?
that looks very nice. Just Carabao. Just I prefer League Cup winners. I'm not going to lie because I think it sounds more classy, but that's nothing to do with the choice of energy drink. But yeah, that's look at that. It's just I mean I still have the kind of print canvas on my living room wall. It's still up there, pride of place. But yeah, that's what do you still watch the highlights or whatever, or the trophy lift on YouTube? Because I very much do at least once a week, and
I
I am not
actually
ashamed to say it.
I watched it last night. I can't remember what for, but I watched it last night, and for the first time, I watched the match day camera video that the club put together.
Yes, yes.
It's the first time I'd seen that. I'd seen something similar that they'd put out, but it wasn't like the full match highlights. So I watched that, and yeah, when Dan Burn scores, and then Isaac gets the second, and actually, what I didn't realize at the time, Eddie Howe went absolutely crackers on the touchline in a good way.
Yeah.
Weird, like you've never seen him celebrate before, and really lost his cool in many ways because Eddie Howe is usually calm and collective. He scores second. Now you're trying to work out how to keep the lead and maybe add to it or defend it. And he was up celebrating like it was
Do
the
you,
full whistle. So a little
do
bit
you know
interesting
what?
there.
You've actually just highlighted my favourite thing about Eddie Howe, because often fans go on about, oh, we want to see passion, passion this, passion that. It's got to be about passion. Where's the passion? I don't always want that from my manager. Yes, I love Kevin Keegan and whatnot, but if you were too passionate, then you kind of let a league lead drift a little bit. But Howe toes that line spectacularly well and lets it out when it is applicable to do so. Other than that, he's calm, cold, collected, kind of in the middle between a Keegan and a kind of Rafa Benitez, who's completely the other way, like kind of stone cold, precise professor. So yeah, that's one of my favorite. Well, no, it is my favorite thing about Eddie Howe.
And when Eddie Howe does that and lets himself loose, you know how big that moment is, don't you? You know, that's what he
Oh yeah,
did when Isaac's goal hit the back there. But interesting, you mentioned there Keegan losing his cool, and we've got a print up on the wall here of that moment. I would love it. And I always find it really interesting because actually, we not that Newcastle United fans celebrate that moment, but it's always looked back on in kind of a, I don't know if positive's not the right word, but it's not looked back on how I think it maybe should be looked back on. It was a manager properly losing his cool, who had lost the mind games with a rival manager, and yet it's actually looked upon much more positively. And I just think sometimes I think about it and think it's a little bit strange, that isn't it?
yeah.
Honestly,
I mean, but that's as close as we got before now, really, isn't it? And it was still a fantastic time, and that squad of players we had, and Keegan is as you can see there for audio watchers, I have got the Champions League patch on my new shirt. Thank you to my kids who got it me for Father's Day. But yeah, it was a great time. But yeah, it is what it is. But Howe's kind of just chooses his moments very carefully, just to let it go. And I love him for that. It's brilliant because on the whole, you want to be kind of calculated, but not as maybe as much as a kind of Rafa Benitez was, where you just kind of live off him putting his glasses away
yeah, you don't want to be an Alan Pardew dancing in the FA Cup final for it to backfire, do you?
or headbutting players or pushing linos.
I also watched that yesterday for some strange reason as well.
We've been through this before on previous series that I actually like Pardew, but
I
yeah.
think I think history has been a kind friend to him. I think at the time, I could not stand him when he went to Palace and the national media were trying to tell us how we should feel about losing Alan Pardew. Now the grass isn't always greener. I couldn't have cared less. I was very happy that he left the club. But now
I was
looking back,
chuffed. I had a tenner at no 20 quid at 33-1 on John Carver, next Newcastle manager. So I was happy as Larry, to be honest.
but looking back, you do have to compliment him for that job he did when Newcastle finished fifth. And look, any manager that goes into that role under an ownership like it was, where trouble it wasn't even just around the corner, it was just always there. It was always going to have a difficult task on their hands. And before we get on and talk about the alternatives to Joao Pedro, just a reminder, ladies and gents, that this episode is sponsored by Saley, a new eSIM service app provided by the creators of NORD VPN. You can choose from several affordable eSIM data plans and over 200 destinations. With a Saley eSIM, you'll always have a connection when needed. Yeah, you download the app once and away you go. It's affordable. You can choose between global and regional plans. Saves you time. You save on your own mobile data. There's 24/7 support available. It's a great device to have on your phones. Hit the link in the podcast description box. Take advantage of a very special offer. Get connected and support the podcast. Right. Alternatives to Joao Pedro, Sam. We'll first off talk about Joao Pedro because that is the man that Newcastle United are going after. That is the man that I think Newcastle United will end up signing alongside probably Anthony Elanga. So, although we're going to present alternatives, I'm just going to right off the bat say I think Pedro will be a Newcastle United player come the end of the summer. 23 years of age, Versatile, can play in very various positions. 30 goals in 70 games for Brighton. Valued at £60 million, which I think is probably the biggest negative towards this deal. That's what people are picking up on, I think, is the price tag. For you, Sam, where do you lie on Joao Pedro becoming a Newcastle United player?
It's confusing in one sense because obviously Callum Wilson may well leave. So you're kind of looking at not a backup to Isak, but someone to kind of dovetail with him because you're going into a big campaign where there's going to be a lot of games. So we know full well Isak is not going to stay fit for all 50 odd games this season. It's just not going to happen. So you need someone to kind of fill in up top who can play 20 games, perhaps. But Pedro, the way he is, are you then looking at someone who can fill in up top when Isak's not fit, but then can play on the right as a kind of first choice right winger? I'm not sure what they want, which is the kind of stumbling blocks. With my alternatives, I've gone for essentially backup strikers. But I know you put a tweet out earlier to get listeners and viewers' opinions on who they want to sign as a Pedro alternative, and I think I did have a brief look before we started, and the vast majority were kind of wingers and kind of number 10s and kind of attacking midfielders. So I don't know what the angle is with Joao Pedro and whether or not they're going to look to play him just as an out and out winger that can fill in when Isak's injured, kind of like what Gordon does. Or kind of just be that one to challenge and dovetail like Wilson is. I'm not sure.
Well, I think the versatility is key for Eddie Howe. He likes players who can play in several different positions. He likes Joao Pedro. Steve Nixon likes Joao Pedro. The thought that signed him before he ended up going to Brighton. He's had a decent time down on the South Coast, but I get your point about what exactly are they signing. For me, it wouldn't work if you're bringing Pedro in to play a backup to Alexander Isak, but be your first choice right winger. That's not what I want. In an ideal world, I want a right winger who's going to be there, battle Jacob Murphy, and then I want an out-and-out centre forward. Now, again, that probably doesn't fit what Eddie Howe likes, his remit, because we know Alexander Isak can play out on the left as well, and he's done that at certain points of his time here. Pedro's just a really interesting one, though, because it goes back to Isak's fitness. Now, he only missed a few games. It seems like he missed a lot more games last season, but he actually didn't. He only missed a few games. Form-wise, didn't have the best time towards the end of the season, and that is probably a direct consequence of, I think, not actually having a striker good enough to push him. Now, for me,
carrying a knock as well, potentially towards the
yes,
back end of the season. I think that was pretty evident.
if you're going to spend £60 million on Joao Pedro, which looks like they're going to have to if they want to sign him, he's not coming in as a backup to Alexander Isak. He's coming in as a direct competitor for Alexander Isak. I don't think you can justify spending that amount of money and saying you're a backup. And I know it doesn't work like that. It's not that simple.
Yeah,
It's not that black and
I
white.
don't like the term backup. I really don't like the term because I don't think that's what we're after.
No, not at all. What I want is a striker who every single day in training is pushing Alexander Isak with the sole thought of Saturday when that team news drops. I want to be ahead of Alexander Isak on that team sheet. That's what I want. That's what I want if you're spending £60 million on a player. Again, it's not that simple because players who Newcastle will be looking at or talking with, and Pedro is probably one of these, will have to be persuaded that they're not coming in as backup. And I think that's why it's really interesting when we get on to talking about these alternatives, that some of the names that are on this list, and I've got a few to add to it, Sam, people might not have heard of, or people might go, what you want about? But it's finding the answer to that question. Are we signing a backup who fills in when he's out of form or he's injured or an impact player off the bench? Or are we going to sign a striker who actually might leave Alexander Isak on the bench?
Yeah, or when push comes to shove, come 60, 65 minutes, and when we need a goal, to have that option of a goal scorer off the bench, which we've not really had for 2 seasons, in essence, because of one reason or another, mainly injuries. We haven't had anything. So, and that's all right if you're bringing on Asula to grab a goal against Ipswich or whatever. But if we're playing, I mean, look at our opening run of fixtures: Villa away, Liverpool at home. If we need a goal with half an hour to go, who have we got to come off the bench? Would you trust Asula? I wouldn't. By no way, to be honest. So is that the where Pedro comes in, or a backup striker, or I know again using that term I hate in backup, but I don't know. I do think we need another. I agree with you that there needs to be another out and out striker there, and we should be focusing on an out and out right winger as well, like we discussed with Kubo and Bakayoko and Akalush and those sort of players.
Because Asula's interesting. You know, he's impressing in the 21 Euro Championships, and a few people have said, "Well, we're there. Do we need to go and spend big on Pedro because we've got Asula?" Yes, we do.
Sula's going to be a late bloomer. I'm not kind of casting aspersions on Asula and saying he's got no hope or whatever, because it's quite obvious he has got a bit about him, but he's still very, very raw, and he's still going to take a bit of time. He's not ready to be our second choice striker at the moment, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, not at all. I think that's the difference. And I said this on an episode earlier in the week. Asula is the backup. Pedro is the competitor, and that for me is the big difference. And Newcastle United need to be looking, if it's not Pedro, which we would think it is Pedro, whoever they bring in, especially for that price tag, needs to be of Premier League pedigree or top flight pedigree across Europe and able to make their mark straight away. Obviously, so Sula, we've just said that he's not going to be the answer. A few people have said, do they need to spend big? Yes, they still do. We'll start though with your wild card.
Yeah, in terms of needing to spend big for a backup striker, no, I don't think we do. I think the areas of focus, which we've already discussed in previous weeks, for centre half and right winger, that's where we need to spend big, quote unquote. There is value to be had. My wild card is a player I've mentioned before on the podcast. And he's just coming back from injury, and I thought, well, I liked him before. I'm not going to let an injury put me off him, sort of thing. So it's Karim Konate from Salzburg, RB Salzburg. He was 21 years of age, and he's just coming back from an ACL injury. Has played in the Champions League. He is capped by the Ivory Coast as well. For those who haven't seen him, I would say, and to kind of make it relevant in Newcastle terms, I would kind of describe him as an amalgamation of Obafemi Martins and Papi Cisse. Sort of like that kind of player. Obviously, it's dependent on how he comes back from injury, but again, if you're gonna let an injury put you off, then we wouldn't have signed Demba Ba, Tino Livramento, whatever. But yeah, I really like him, and I think he is there to be kind of punted on a little bit. I think he's under contract till 2028, so he is fairly sewn up. Whether he will kind of follow the Sesko route and end up at Leipzig is a big question mark. However, Leipzig haven't got Champions League. I don't think they've got Europe, have they? They've had a shocking season last season anyway by their standards. They've definitely not got Champions League. So there is that to be kind of potentially exploited. But I think he's worth taking a gamble on, because he has big potential if he doesn't show any signs of kind of slowing down that progression from injury. And all three of these options are fairly cheap in relative terms. In terms of going out to get a striker, you normally think, well, this is the most expensive part of the pitch. I don't think he would cost all that much in relative terms.
Maybe they could get him a bit cheaper because of this injury. It's such a bad injury, though. I always do worry about players coming back from ACLs. Obviously, we've got.
But they do now. It's becoming more and more common.
But it is a risk, and particularly a big risk as well, I feel, for strikers. He's been out since November 2024, and there's no due date yet to when he will arrive. But as you say, his record's fantastic.
He should be back for pre-season. So,
but they're again, like, are you going to take the risk on that? He's coming back into pre-season. Maybe we're doing this, next year or in January potentially. But I just think
then he could be worth double what he is now. At the moment, I think you're looking at Asula money for him.
With that record, it's a great record. He scored 7 and 17 before the injury in November 2024. I think he'd cost a little bit more than that, and I just think the fact that he would only be.
I mean, there's always going to be add-ons and percentage fees, and after international caps, and there's going to be add-ons longer than your legs. But I don't know. In terms of a base fee, I don't think you'd be talking about the world and more here. But yeah, there'll be add-ons galore because he is just 21. I don't think he'll be overly expensive. I mean, just remember it's a striker from the Austrian league, so it's it's not one of Europe's major leagues. Yes, he's played Champions League. He got a brace against Feyenoord, I think it was. So he's got good Champions League experience, which is a plus when we're going into it again this season. Can't wait for that draw, by the way. So yeah, I think he's worth taking a punt on. I really do. I mean, like I say, the reason why I've included him as a kind of wild card and not as a first and second choice is that nod to that injury, but I think it's worth a gamble.
What makes him ready to be a competitor to Alexander Isak when he's a year or the same age rather as Will Asula?
Yeah, I wouldn't get bogged down in that. Players develop at different stages. I mean, a 21-year-old Didier Drogba wouldn't be getting anywhere near Chelsea's first team. He was a bit of a late bloomer, wasn't he? How old was he when he battered us for Marseille? He was a real late bloomer. So I don't get bogged down in those sort of ages. I don't see why he's not ready when he's already played Champions League and he's already played international football. He's got plenty of experience for his age, so I don't see that being a factor. And again, it would give chance. This is assuming and hoping Isak stays fit in the early stages of the season at least, to kind of slowly bed him in.
Well, one to watch there. We wish him well in his recovery. Your second pick, then, Sam?
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to France for this one. Indeed, for the last two actually for Ligue 1. Arnaud Calamuendo, who plays for Rennes. He's 23. Had a really kind of impressive season last season in goal scoring terms. Excuse me. Which scored 17 league goals for Rennes in a real poor team that finished kind of lowerish mid-table. I think they finished about 12th or 13th in the end. He's got a cracking record. He was from the PSG youth setup. He's the reason why I've kind of included him as it's a bit more sort of urgent now is because I've seen Spurs have been linked with him, and that would narc me. And it would narc me quite a lot. Not quite as much as Verts going to Liverpool narcs me, because that really does irritate the living heck out of me. And the fee I've seen for Spurs is 26 million, which is peanuts. I think that's a bargain. 17 goals in Ligue 1 last season. He's not yet a French international, but he was in the Olympic squad that was managed by Thierry Henry. He's under contract for another 2 years, so there's a bit more sort of kind of urgency in now for Rennes at least is the opportune moment for them to sell, I guess, because time will be ticking on his contract. But yeah, I like him. I think he's got bags of potential. Good age as well, 23. Kind of fits the mold of our transfer policy. And I couldn't believe the figure being quoted for him in the press with the potential move to Spurs. This one needs hijacking.
Yeah, 26 million does seem a little bit on the cheap side for a man of his record that he's got in Ligue 1, 34 in 94. I mean, who does he remind you of? Is there a certain player that you're reminded of when you watch him?
Again, to kind of put it in Newcastle United terms, Demba Ba-ish potentially, but maybe Demba Ba mixed with Martins just for the bit more pace angle of kind of things. Yeah, sort of. But yeah, he's goal scorer, goal scorer. No, like real big tick in the box there. So, whereas Martins was a bit more flash, and Barr was a goal scorer as well, if you like. That's where I'm getting at. I think it's a matter of time before he does get a cap for France. However, that French squad, just a complete plethora of talent for them to choose from. I don't think it's more to do with just the world class options France have got as opposed to Callum Wendo, that he hasn't already got a cap. So yeah, great age, great attributes, great potential, great price. I'd be pretty miffed if Spurs get him for that fee, because that's great business for them.
So interesting.
Combined with Tell as well, because if we were doing this a few weeks ago, I'd be trying to swoon in on that move, because I think Tell's got tremendous talent, and I don't think Spurs is a good fit for him.
I mean, you only cost Rennes 21 million 2 years ago, so they're not even making that much of a profit,
That's what I mean.
really.
I don't get that fee. That it's too good to be true.
So, but it does appear that he has been allowed to talk to other clubs. In a recent interview, the Rennes president, Aaron Poulet, stated he was one of the players who had a lot of contacts in January. And we have authorised him to speak with other clubs. So that comes amid interest from Tottenham. Yeah, I mean, that would be a bargain. And interestingly as well, they're buying him probably to follow the same path as Newcastle would be doing. You've got a striker. They've got Dominic Solanke, big money signing. You would probably think he's going to remain their number one choice. You're thinking
I
maybe
wouldn't
he's
have thought
not.
so.
No, you think he's better than Solanke?
I'm not a Solanke fan, so I'm a bit, and I'm a Tell fan. I really don't think Tell's that's a good move for Tell at all to Tottenham. I think he's going to waste his career a little bit, but yeah, I would be relatively excited. I think looking at it from a Spurs perspective as well, they're looking at a potential replacement for Son as well. So having that kind of versatility with Callum Wendo and also Tell, it would be key for them to maybe not displace your man Solanke, but to play alongside as a three or whatever. It just goes to show the value to be had that there is in the European leagues, because if they're going to sell him on after a couple of years for just what, £5 or £6 million profit, is just mind boggling.
Indeed. Your number one choice then?
Right, so I will precurse this with that it's probably not going to happen, and I'm not currently sure that it's his potential move is done and dusted, because it's gone very quiet. And again, it's another one I've mentioned before. It's Jonathan David from Lille, who's available on a free. Yes, he's going to cost an arm and a leg wages wise, but this would be still a statement signing. Apparently, he was moving to Napoli, who are making moves this summer. Naples is the place to be. I prefer a bit out of Naples, more to the Amalfi Coast sort of thing, but nonetheless. But Jonathan David, it seems to have gone a bit quiet. He's currently on international duty with Canada in the what's that ridiculous tournament they have,
The
the
Gold
Gold
Cup.
Cup. Yes, well, I prefer my Gold Cups at Cheltenham, not in Central America. Yeah, awful competition. So he's currently on there. He's won the French league a few years ago with Lille. He's had a great time there. Played alongside Sven Botman. And the big strikers that are being talked about for moves this summer, he's on a par with your Sesco's, with your Gyökeres's. This would be a statement signing that he would have to be one of the top earners at the clubs, but I don't think we again, like I said in previous shows, we need to be looking to make our squad great, not just good. This is the summer where we need to kind of put a bit of a mission statement out saying, right, we can compete on all fronts, and we're not going to go with a whimper when we do get Champions League. We're still here to compete and achieve success. So, and with signings like Alanga and Pedro, for me, I just don't see it. I see them as just keeping up with top four, not pushing on to the next level, sort of thing for me. So Jonathan David to have two strikers, one who is world class with Isak, Jonathan David, potential to be world class, probably isn't there yet. Yeah, would be certainly a big statement. But yeah, it's going to be tough. Every big team in Europe's probably had a look at him or had conversations with him. Whether it's already a done deal that Napoli's already got him, I don't know. It wouldn't be a shock. But yeah, I would be disappointed if we were in this conversation. Same as I was disappointed last summer when we weren't in the conversation for Guirassy, who I mentioned was available for £15 million, and he went and was top scorer in the last season's Champions League.
Yeah, you know your stuff, don't you? Jonathan David is just, for me, not going to happen because you say
No,
there you
I
have
get
to
that.
be.
That's fine, but you can see why he's my first choice, though, right?
Oh, I can see that he's an extremely talented player. 109 goals in 232 appearances for Lille. He's absolutely fantastic. But he wouldn't just be amongst the top earners. He would be the top earner. They would have to
He would
absolutely.
be.
He would be the top earner. They would have to smash up their wage structure to get him to Newcastle United.
Yeah, potentially they would, but he shouldn't be the top earner. It would be my point. He's not a better player than Alexander Isak.
No, but that's irrelevant. For him to come to Newcastle United, his demands are pretty much well known. You're talking well over £200,000 a week to get him to Newcastle United, plus a massive sign-on fee. He is the sort of player that I think you would rate your wage structure for, most certainly, because he's that talented. But whether now is the right time to do it, I'm not too sure. And then I think the sign-on fee as well might create a few
Yeah,
problems.
well, I don't think the signing on fee would be a problem because you got to remember there is no transfer fee. So and that's huge. If he was still under contract for 2-3 more years, then you're looking at Sesko and Gyökeres money. You're looking way north of 60 million, way north of 60 mil. So you play the percentages and you got a chance, like we did with Demba Ba, kind of on a lesser scale, really. It's not every day that these sort of players are available like that. So you could forgive a sort of eye-watering signing on fee, etc., to kind of get a deal like this done. The reason why I've included him is because of him being on a free transfer. I mean, all the three I've included are less than 30 million, which for strikers is sort of peanuts nowadays, isn't it? When you think of how much did your man Delap go for?
Yeah, well, 30 million, didn't you? And for top quality strikers, you are right. Anything under 30 million is a great bargain to be had, really. But David, with the wage demands, I just don't see Newcastle United fully ripping up their ceiling when it comes to wages for him. And also, you put him below Isak in terms of how good he is right now. Some
Yeah,
people might argue he's on the level. Some people might argue he's better. That's what the comments are there for. I would assume that Jonathan David would think he was better than Alexander Isak, and it goes back to the point we made at the start of the show. How do you persuade Jonathan David to come and join Newcastle United with Alexander Isak ahead of him in the pecking order?
again, there's no pecking order. This whole term of backup, first choice, pecking order, it's there's so many games and so many fronts we're fighting on this season. Everyone's going to get substantial game time.
Yeah,
So,
but
I
you can
mean,
guarantee
for
that.
an 8-4 pad there, those notes are pretty sparse that
Yeah, I
you've
like a little
got.
bit of space in between my notes. But if you're Jonathan David or you're his representative sitting on the table with Newcastle United or anybody that's interested in signing him,
Okay, so
if
how
they've
do
got a
Chelsea get players?
well, I mean, they pay the they pay the big bucks, and somehow players fall for whatever sales strategy they're putting out. I
So
don't know. I don't know about.
I don't. I just think we're looking at it with the wrong mentality now. We're, the monkey is off our backs with trophies. We should be looking for next level stuff now, to challenge for the Premier League. Not which at the moment, because of I say stop start transfer business. It hasn't started yet. When you see rival teams, City have done great business so far. Liverpool have done great business. And we're already being left behind because of one reason or another. Look, I'm not getting delusions of grandeur and saying we should be winning the Premier League, because no, that's not what I'm saying. Please don't get me confused. This is where we are at the moment, where we're Champions League 2 seasons out of the last 3, domestic trophy winners, a very, very good manager, a very healthy PSR status for a change. Investment is there ready. It's still an exciting time, an exciting project. We should be looking now for the next level, the next step up, and players that can be great, not just good. And it is my belief that Alanga and Pedro are good. Can they be great? Pedro potentially. Alanga, no, not for me.
See, I totally disagree with you. I totally disagree with you on Alanga. I think he's got so much more to give. He's going to be a top player, and if he signed for Newcastle United, I think he would go out and prove himself to be a really astute buy. And I also think, while Alanga is never going to be talked about in the same breath as some of the best wingers we've seen in the Premier League, working with Eddie Howe and the level he is at and can get at makes this Newcastle United team a better side. And he's not a world-class player. He's never going to be. But what he does do, what he will do, is turn Newcastle United, I think, into a potential title challenging side with a few more additions. Just because he's not world-class in the definition, it doesn't mean he can't take Newcastle to the next level. Because if he, continues to develop, gets to the next level, the stage up, provides the assists for Isak, chips him with a few goals, that's improving Newcastle United. You've thrown a few more signings and they'll just get better and better and improve. It's not necessarily about where that player ranks in terms of being the world's best. It's more about the collective, I think, in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, your point of world-class players, I don't think I've kind of highlighted any players that are now ready-made world-class players that we should sign. I'm not saying, because
But I mean,
if we
Jonathan
were
David.
making this, yeah, because he's available on a free transfer, Andrew. If we were going on about strikers that we should sign, then it would be okay, Lautaro Martinez, Victor Osimhen, and whatever. Let's get Endrick from Real Madrid and this, that, and the other. But this is not. They're not realistic. They're ready-made world-class players who don't currently fit into the mold of what we're trying to achieve. It wouldn't be good business sense either. Yes, it would be exciting short term, but it's unrealistic.
But on that, if you talk about realism, then Alanga is where we're at right now, then is he not? And every time
No,
we've spoken about Alanga, you've kind of turned your nose up at it, and I can't really understand for why.
no, I think Alanga would have been a good signing for us a couple of years ago.
I think you're
Trying to break into the
off.
top, to kind of the upper echelons, which we've kind of done 2 in the last 3 seasons, and we're very unlucky that the season we didn't achieve it. I'm not turning my nose up at him. If he signs, look, he gets my full support, and I hope he does very well, and I hope I'm proved wrong. I'm not saying, like I say, I'm not saying he's a bad player. Not once have I said he's a bad player. I said he's a good player. I just don't think he's got the potential to be a great player.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts. I mean, same on Joao Pedro. I mean, you said there that you think he's got the potential to be a very, very good player. But again, these 2 signings, which I think are the more realistic signings out of all the names we've mentioned, you don't seem too enthused by them.
No, I'm not enthused by him. They don't give me the fizz. They don't excite me. Like the signings of Isak and Tonali did. Yeah, no, it's a fair point. They don't excite me.
And is that because They're not as good as you deemed Isak and Tonali to be at the time of signing. Is that because of the price tag? I mean, what's the sticking point for you?
I think price tag has a lot to do with it. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the quotes that have gone round that I've read in the press, same as everyone else, I think are way too high. Which makes me think that it all might be a bit of a ruse because we've not really once been exploited. And when fees have got too high, we have walked away. The same as we did with Gehi last summer. And we may do with Trafford as well, because I've got some goalkeepers as well for you too. Chevalier, who's now been linked with us as well. That excites me greatly. Potentially to get Lucas Chevalier from Lille. Maybe he can be on the same Eurostar as Jonathan David. But yeah, no, they don't do it. They don't excite me. I don't. I think it is mainly down to price. I don't know whether Joao Pedro passes the old dickhead test as well. I'm not completely convinced by him. Talented player, no doubt about it. They all are. They're all Premier League tried and tested, Premier League proven players. But I was kind of hoping that the squad. I mean, it's still early days, and I'm not judging the business at all yet because there hasn't been any for a start, apart from Cordero, who looks very smart. In the current under-19 championships. But yeah, I think those prices that we've been quoted are too high. What was it, 60 odd million for Alanga and a bit more for Pedro as well? We're talking Isak levels of cash, just not for me. I think that's way too high.
Well, let us know in the comments your thoughts on the prices that have been quoted for both Alanga and Joao
Especially the
Pedro.
value I've presented you in these shows as well. I mean, look, all these kind of strikers available left for less than 30 million. Kubo's probably 40 on the right wing. Diamande is probably about 30 odd ish for centre half. So,
But we have seen players who have been top scorers in France before, and they've arrived in the Premier League and
he
absolutely
wasn't a
flopped.
top scorer in France.
Well, some of the names you've mentioned, obviously, well, one of the top scorers, the Rennes chap, for example, he was what, third or fourth top. So, there's always a gamble and always a risk. Just because they're not as expensive as maybe Pedro doesn't mean they're going to perform any better. I mean, I've got a few alternatives for you. Are you ready?
I'm very interested. Yes.
So, Promise David, who I've mentioned a few times, Canadian international, 23 years of age, 24 goals last season for Union St. Gilles as they won their first
Any
league title.
relation?
To Jonathan David, no. As I understand it, David is kind of how he is known by rather than his actual surname.
Right.
But no relation. First title in 90 years for in the Belgian league there. He's just signed a new deal, though, earlier this week, extended until June 2029. But that doesn't really
That's the
matter. I
end
think
of
that's
that, then,
more.
isn't it?
Well, no, not necessarily, because there were teams sniffing around. Leeds United were linked for one of them, and Paris, is it Paris FC, who've
Yeah.
been promoted? They were
Yeah.
linked as well.
So
So I
yeah,
think,
so you're talking about teams that are trying to survive in their respective leagues next season.
okay, but you speak to people, and this guy is tipped to be
Just stating a fact.
the very, very best. Okay, he's playing a lot. He's got a better goals ratio than Jonathan David had in that league, though, before he moved over to Lille. So I think that speaks volumes. He's playing the Gold Cup alongside David. He scored earlier this week as well. I think there could be a potential bargain in there, even with the new deal that he's just signed. I think that's probably more St. Gilles protecting their value or increasing the value on the player rather than anything else. Sticking in the Belgian league, we've got Tulu Awukadu there, plays for Genk, 24 years of age, 18 goals last season, 38 in 89. So another one who just ripped up the Belgian leagues. And I get it's an inferior league, but if we're not happy, or if some people aren't happy with Newcastle paying £60 million for Joao Pedro, don't want to see them rip up the wage structure for Jonathan David. Also, they want someone to come in who is more at home at playing as an impact striker off the bench or every other week rather than competing with Isak and potentially ousting Isak, then these are the players that maybe they should target. Players who've got huge
Yeah.
potential, who have not just performed well, but actually scored a bucket load of goals in O'Kane and Fever League. But 24 goals is not to be sniffed at in what is still a decent enough league to put that up as an accolade. These aren't going to cost big wages. They're not going to cost huge amounts of money. And I think maybe it just sits a little bit better with the right age profile as well at what Newcastle United want this summer, or what some Newcastle United fans want this summer who don't want to see a big money signing up top.
Yeah, never turn your nose up at these leagues. Absolutely, there's some right hidden gems in there, as I've hopefully shown with the Austrian league with Karim Kanate. But yeah, no, absolutely, I'm with you. You never turn your nose up on these kind of so-called smaller leagues.
Other names to mention then, we got Emmanuel Amiga, who plays for Strasbourg. For 22 years of age, 14 goals in 27 games as Strasbourg qualified for, I want to say, the Champions League, did they, or the Europa League? They did quite well in the Liam, wasn't here. I think it was the Champions League, maybe. I'll check that out. But anyway, obviously linked to Chelsea because they are co-owned by
Yeah.
which is inevitable. He's just signed, or he's going to sign a new deal apparently, and there's talk of him agreeing to join Chelsea in a couple of years' time, which is scandalous but inevitable.
Chelsea have deals in place for so many young, kind of unbelievable talents. They. I mean, I know their model as it stands for their first team is pretty abhorrent, but the way they're mopping up young talent across the globe is quite concerning. Although Real Madrid have just signed an absolute gem from River Plate as well in Mastonanto. Yes, please. And I was thoroughly impressed by Noah Darvic in the under-19s. Did you see the Germany-England under-19s game the other day, where Germany were leading 5-1? And England got it back to 5-5. What a game that was! But yeah, Noah Darvic is a right gem to keep an eye on. I think he's been mopped up by Barcelona actually, but he's a young German lad and attacking midfielder. He's very much one to keep an eye on.
Well, I've got another German on the cards here as well. Nick Waltermid. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly. Of Stuttgart. He is impressing 12 and 28 this season. I think he's playing for the under 21s at the moment for Germany. Strasbourg, by the way, qualified for the Conference League. So I was a little bit above my stations in the Champions League, but a great season nonetheless for them, and plenty of their players heading to Chelsea with their links there. Also, Igor Piaxio in Feyenoord, 24 years of age, Brazilian, 32 and 93, wanted by Arsenal apparently, but he will cost around 35 million pounds. So again, half the price of Pedro. Once again, though, you're taking the gamble, I guess, with these players. And the Dutch league is notorious for that, isn't it? I mean, we signed Sam de Jong, who I thought was superb. I was so excited when we signed de Jong. I thought that was a bargain. 6 million quid, was it? He just torn up the league for so long, once nearly everything under the sun. His record as an attacking midfielder was superb, and it just went so badly. Like that is the number one Newcastle United signing that tops the list of I wish that had not gone the way it did, because I loved them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, injuries and like even got a collapsed lung, didn't he?
He'd recovered, hadn't he? Had he recovered from the collapsed lung, and then he got the strange eye injury, or was it the other way around? But they happened right after one another, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a shame how these things can pan out, but just to show every transfer is a risk.
His brother still tearing it up. Scored 17 goals. Is it his brother or his cousin brother?
Brother, yeah, he couldn't score a penalty for us, could he? So yeah, just yeah, that was a crazy time, wasn't it? We had like Facundo Ferreira as well, the Argentine striker who was meant to be the next Super Jesus, but he didn't even get a first team outing, did he? But yeah, that was a weird time, wasn't it?
I mean, Burras spent big. Do you remember this name? Alfonso Alves. Remember that name?
Yeah.
45 goals in 39 appearances for Heerenveen in the Dutch top flight. Moved to Borough for 12 million quid and managed 10 and 14 before heading over to Qatar. I mean, it shows you the risk, and I suppose really it is always a gamble, no matter where you sign players from, but especially the Dutch and Belgian leagues tend to be a bit riskier. A few final names then for you to pass your judgment on, Sam. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Right. We have got Mohamed Amoura from Wolfsburg. 10 goals in 31 games in his debut season. Algerian international. 13 goals for Algeria. I think he's 24, 25 maybe. So a
Okay.
little bit older. But again, I think he might just suit that profile of someone who can do the job, doesn't cost that much, but isn't expected to play first team football, which is the exact opposite to what I want. But I think that's when Newcastle United maybe have to pitch if they're looking for alternatives to Joao Pedro, although once again, Pedro probably will be the man they sign. And Samu Omorodion from Porto, 21 years
Yeah.
of age, 19 and 30 games, Spanish under 19 international.
Yeah. Don't mind him.
Yeah,
Don't
I'm
mind him.
surprised he's never on your list, but he probably cost. I think he moved for £100 million to Porto. Well, that was the release clause anyway.
Yeah. I'll give you that one, but it's not going to happen.
No, but he's a talent.
Who,
And
who were the choices of the listeners and viewers and whatnot? I saw a few. I mean, I was expecting to be like hit with like Dusan Vlahovic, who's just like the biggest talking show pony there is. He's such an overrated player, that Juventus chap. But yeah, who have we got? I'm expecting a bit some Evan Ferguson action in there somewhere as
yeah,
well.
we've got one suggestion of Evan Ferguson. Johnny says he could be a sensible signing, but buying. We're clearly at buying. Sorry, he's clearly a talent. Probably happy with playing behind Isaac, and has a different profile to what we have, and it prevents him scoring higher against us, which is always
Yeah,
a
it's been
bonus.
muddling since then, though, hasn't it? And he was
Mm.
naff for West Ham, and it was a bit baffling, really, because he looked as though after that hat trick he had the world at his feet. Which has been pretty tame since. It's quite a strange one, that. But yeah, if he regain his former glory, it certainly could be an option. But yeah, interesting.
We've got FPL House saying it depends what the fee is. If it's around £60 million for Pedro, I'd go and get Jota from Liverpool, much better player and finisher. We've got Keegan saying depends what he's brought in for. You've got Simons, Millet, Eze. If it was to drop into midfield,
Yeah,
you
Xavi
could go.
Simons is one, but again, that's not he wouldn't be to play down the middle. He'd probably be one that can cut in from the right wing and or play as a kind of 10, which at the moment at least isn't how we play. But he's a good player, there's no doubt about that. But I don't
Yeah,
not for
attitude
a
though.
yeah, I get that. Not for a striker either.
Lots of questions over his attitude. I mean, reports you read claim that his attitude is the reason he's on the verge of being sold by Leipzig, despite scoring 11 and 33 last season. They want the cash in and at a price much lower than they thought they would be cashing in.
Well, they've not
After
got Champions
signing
League,
back
so
in
they're there to be
2023.
exploited, Leipzig.
Yeah, well, if you're going to get back in the Champions League and take advantage of missing a year, though, he'd probably be the man with his talent that would get you there. But apparently they don't want him. But a lot of people in the comments are saying Xavi Simons is the man that they'd like to sign. I think what you see with the comments here, Sam, overwhelmingly people have put forward wingers as
Yeah.
alternatives to signing Pedro. So that to me suggests a lot of people think he is going to come out and play on the right.
Yeah, and that kind of baffles me somewhat. I know he's versatile, but is that predominantly his position for Brighton?
No, I don't think it is. I think he's predominantly a four, and he's been kind of alternating, hasn't he, with Danny Welbeck and
So
others.
why can't he make that striker spot his own when he's competing against Danny Welbeck?
I mean, that's the big question. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm
How,
a
how
big
does
fan
he
of
how
Danny
does he
Welbeck.
expect to displace Alexander Isak when he can't displace Danny Welbeck?
Well, that's the question I think everyone's probably asking, and that's probably the question that Newcastle might ask of him as well, and say, well, come on, then we've given you our sales pitch. Let us know why we should be signing you. And I mean, interestingly, I'm just looking here at his stats for last season. So he scored 10 in 30 games in all competitions. And according to Transfer Market, so out of those games he played 16 as a centre forward, 7 as a second striker, 2 as a left winger, and 1 as attacking midfielder, which suggests that actually any suggestion that he's more at home on the right than anywhere else is not going to be the case, based on those stats last season at Brighton.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It just doesn't do anything for me, I'm afraid.
So if Newcastle were to sign him, and obviously you'd back him because he's playing in black and white, but
Yeah.
right now it wouldn't be for you.
No, but again, I'm just a fan. I have no skin in the game other than wanting my team to do well. No, he wouldn't be my choice, as you well know, as we've progressed through this kind of little mini series. But I just don't. I just find it baffling, and for that fee as well. I know we had interest in him before he went to Brighton, but I just don't understand. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I hope I am. If indeed he is the man that Eddie Howe and his team and Steve Nixon, Andy Howe have nailed their colours to the mast on whether it's Alanga or Joao Pedro, then fine. I hope they can do the business and see us back into the kind of top 4 this season, and hopefully we have a good run in the other cups as well, Champions League including. So I don't know. I'm just quite pensive about it. But again, look, we could be way off, and it could be all a smokescreen, which they've done before to an absolute T. So I'm not judging yet. I'll judge the transfer business when the transfer window closes. But those are my sort of options. There are plenty more, but I can't see. I'd just be very confused if Joao Pedro was the one to play right wing for us.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I think if he signs, he will be as a number 10, given anyhow the option to change the formation, or someone who is pushing Alexander Isak for that
So you
place.
think Howe's edging for a change of formation going into this season, which I'm not against.
Not
because
a change of formation for the majority of games, but I think he will want to have an alternative formation. I don't think he's had the players to really change it up. Those kind of 11 to 13 players that he's been able to use regularly are more suited to the formation that we've seen for the majority of last season. Whereas you buy someone like Pedro, who can play as that second striker off the shoulder of Isak, it really does give you a different dynamic.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the more likely scenario then, that we're probably going to change formation, and you probably see that kind of back three with wing backs be a bit more commonplace. And then you could have Gordon and Pedro off Isak, couldn't you? And you'll just have Tonali and Bruno in midfield, and Joe Linton sort of filling in here and there. Again, it's a risk, but again, I'm not adverse to a change of system, because you've got to keep things fresh. And I've said in previous podcasts gone by over the past year or two that the top managers, your Guardiolas, your Klopps of this world, they do change things up. So why not Howe doing the same?
I mean, I like the look of Strand Larson at Wolves. I think he would be a superb addition to Newcastle United.
Why are we battling for mid-table next season?
Oh my God! Just because the mid-tier. I mean, Nick Pope signed from a relegated Burnley.
What's that got to do with anything?
Because I'm
Strand Larson is not a player you pin your hopes on to charge us into the Champions League.
He is he'll be a great Premier League striker. 14 goals in his debut season.
He'll be a great. Right, let's get that quote.
Yeah, no.
He will be a great Premier League striker.
Yeah, I don't understand why. I'm surprised that actually, Sam, people turn their noses up.
I'm not turning my nose up at him, but
you just said he's not
said
you just said he's not the player.
Premier League striker.
So just to be clear, if you are chasing Champions League football or lofty ambitions of the Premier League title, targeting players from clubs who finish mid-table or just survive is not the way to go.
I didn't say that.
Well, you've alluded to
I
it.
said Strand Larsen's not that good.
Well, no, but you said he's a mid-table player. He's from
He's a
mid-table
mid-table
team.
player.
I mean, Liverpool signed Jota from Wolves.
Yeah, good player.
Okay.
You can sign players from mid-table teams because they're obviously have that potential to kick on. I don't think Strand Larsen has that ability.
I'll come back to me at the end of next season when he's banged in another 15
Hey,
goals.
you were spot on about Delap, so you could be right again.
I don't think your number one pick is a realistic choice, so I'm going to ban you.
How can a free transfer be unrealistic?
The wage is too much. Come on, give me another name. Are you sticking with him? You think that's we're talking about realistic?
I've given you so much value to go on here. Like all these strikers costing less than £30 million. If I'm going to give you another one, then it'll be one to kind of break that mold. And you're trying to get the purpose of it is you will need a striker that can get you 10 to 15 goals on top of what Alexander Isak are going to give you, like Callum Wilson did the season we did finish fourth. And the way they pushed each other on towards that back end of that season after the cup final heartache against Manchester United, the way we kicked on from there, from the win at Wolves at home, and then to really big wins, the pair of them dovetailing so superbly, big away wins at like West Ham and Everton, and that is what you want your strikers to be, full flow, pushing each other on in the right spirit, the right attitude. It's not disrupting the squad, it's kicking on the squad. That's what we want to be aiming for. Obviously Wilson can't do that anymore, unfortunately. So that's what you kind of want and need, and Isak needs it as well, because if you just turn up every day at training going, well, I know I'm going to start anyway because I'm just that guy. If you've got some proper competition in the ranks, then you just have to gain that extra half a yard. It's just not a foregone conclusion, which I think is beneficial to the squad as a whole. It's tricky. It's the hardest area of the pitch to recruit, isn't it? There are a number of players I like, but that again, you're toying with the idea of realistic and not realistic. I think Jonathan David is realistic. I don't think it'll happen, because whether or not this move to Napoli gets done or not remains to be seen. But to say it's unrealistic is bizarre when he's available on a free. You could make him the club's top earner and then go and give Isak a contract extension or whatever, and make him the top earner and whatnot, and that would suffice. But to say a free transfer is unrealistic is a little bit far fetched.
Well, there we go. Let us know in the comments your view. As I said at the start, I want someone to come in and push Alexander Isak, compete with him, maybe even oust him and leave him sitting on the bench. Joao Pedro, the man to do that, I think he would give a good go. And so that's why Newcastle United like him. I think he can leave his mark straight away. If you're looking for value for money, I think you have to go and look into the Belgian or the French or the German leagues and try and pick up someone there.
What about Nkunku?
It was mentioned by some of our listeners and viewers, but Chelsea are probably going to want to try and recruit what they spent on him originally, which was what, 50, 60 million quid. And I mean, look, I think, did I discuss it with you? I discussed it with Aaron. I was buzzing when he signed. I couldn't wait to see him in the Premier League, and it's just obviously not gone very well for him. But
I think that's more down to Chelsea rather than him himself.
Yeah, we had a couple of injuries, and but I don't know. I just think when you come in with that fanfare, if it doesn't work, how easy is it to shake that off? And again, I mean, if you're complaining about Pedro's price and he's got that goal record, you're going to be paying similar for Nkunku, who's just not on the net at all, really. So Not for me. I can see why people might suggest him. If it was a bargain, if it was maybe a loan deal, maybe, then I could be on board with that. But no, not for me. If you're going to spend £60 million, then maybe Pedro is the answer. Newcastle like him. They've watched him for a while.
Of course, the man who we almost got all them years ago is back in the news big time because he's kind of rejuvenated himself. Ekatike.
£100 million is the rumoured price tag.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, yes, he's got back. I mean, it just makes you think why on earth he bothered going to PSG, really.
Well, I suppose if you've been playing in the French leagues and all that, and you see the big lights, then you probably are going to go there, right?
Speaking of PSG, Gonzalo Ramos.
Yeah, he's a man that is often talked about.
What's realistic and what's not realistic, I don't know. To be honest, I didn't think Isak and Tonali were realistic, but here we are.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see what happens. It's interesting. It comes down to value for money. Do you spend big and roll the dice, or do you spend half of that and roll the dice as well? Because however you do it, it's going to be a risk. It just depends on what Newcastle United want. And from our understanding, it is Joao Pedro. So that deal, I think, will get done.
Are you a fan of that deal? Does that enthuse you? Does that give you the fizz?
It doesn't excite us too much, but it excites me more than it excites you. So again, I think his record's all right. I think he's got another level to go, maybe two. For me, it's just his attitude and discipline, which worries me a lot. And then also the question of how he fits into this side. Will he be happy to play second fiddle to Alexander Isak? Or will Eddie Howe rip up his current formation, his favourite formation, to fit Joao Pedro into that side? And then the question is, can Joao Pedro handle that responsibility? Because Eddie Howe is ripping up this formula, which has worked. He'll then have to drop one of his three centre midfielders who, let's be honest, if they're on form and fit, are the best midfielder in the Premier League. That is a massive thing on Pedro's shoulders, really.
Yeah, it is, and but if it is a number 10 kind of role for him, then that's where your likes of Xavi Simons, Eze, and all those kind of guys come into the equation. Yeah, I remember talking to Les Ferdinand about Eze before he signed for Crystal Palace. And he knew what a talent he was going to be then when Les was director of football at QPR and whatnot. But yeah, he'd certainly cost an arm and a leg now, wouldn't he? But again, he'll be taking Palace into Europe. Court case pending or whatever's going on there, but yeah, it's an interesting one. But it's not time to worry just yet, is it?
No, not at all. Plenty of time to go. Well, ladies and gents, thank you very much for tuning in to the Mulliner and Musgrove Show. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please do leave us a rating and review. Yes, we'll do goalkeepers next. Thank you for shouting over me when I'm just about to deliver the best sign-off ever.
The best sign-off ever. Go on then. Take a run up.
It's happened now. Yes, we'll be doing goalkeepers in our next episode, ladies and gents. So if you've got any alternatives to James Trafford, do let us know. And Sam, being a former goalkeeper himself, is really going to enjoy that episode. That's where his wealth of experience comes from, isn't it? Oh, he didn't even bite there.
Sunday League, yeah, great.
But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much for tuning in. I will see you guys very soon.